And in this particular class, in this particular professor, he is well known around Jamaica. This man,
So you're not alone.
I'm not alone.
Okay.
And many are staying within, working from within to gradually, implement evolutionary change.
Okay.
Whoa, brother. Yesterday I did a video about this young man's testimony of a professor in one of our universities, and he's speaking in what happened in Jamaica, and how there were some teachings that were denounced and rejected, especially the sanctuary messages and the 1844 concept, and also the historical critical method theory of studying the Bible, which is also very problematic. So we've spoken about this video, we've spoken about it all in this video, but now there were a lot of comments that I received from a number of people, some good, some bad, and in between. You know how that always goes. But Greg's comment really stood out to me, and I wanted to make this video because of what Greg says, and I went into to do some more research, and I'm going to share with you what I've discovered. So Greg Cohen is his name, 1530. Pastor James, I live 3 miles from the university. This is an old video when this young man was giving his testimony. There was a professor working there that did exactly what this young man said, and many of them left the church because of the Professor Baldwin. Those who did not stop serving God completely, some are now preachers employed. The university took action and fired him and what he's doing. Okay, so I appreciate this because this is why the information has to be updated. Once you get more information, you're going to come back and make another video to actually speak about this. So this is good to know that Professor Baldwin was fired, and also people were impacted, and definitely there are some ministers that are still standing. And again, we're going to listen to Professor Baldwin's today because I found a video on the internet talking about why I left the Seventh Adventist Church. This is the testimony of Dr. Clinton Baldwin. I'm like, whoa, you can't make this up. An article was also written by Adventist Today, posted November 20th, 2017. Guys, I'm learning some of this stuff. He said, some of this stuff I don't know. Some of you might know. I was somewhat very sheltered as a Seventh-day Adventist. I came into the faith in 2010, and I just been active in my local church. So a lot of this stuff, most people in my local area, we don't even know about. So this is news for me, and it's very interesting. So follow-up interview with Clinton Baldwin about his book, The Person of Jesus, God's Obligatory Sabbath. And he is showing there is a contrast between the way the Sabbath is kept in contradiction to who Jesus is. And generally, his argument is that the Sabbath is a person. It's not so much a day, not a commandment that is to be observed. So I'm going to let you hear it directly from him. So here is part of what his argument is about. I can go into all of this thing and read and break down all of this, but the video is even better because he pretty much tells you what his position is. So he's going to talk right now about some of the theological issues that he had with the Seventh Adventist Church. Keep in mind, this is the perspective of a teacher that was in one of our schools, in one of our universities, and how many more are thinking along that line, and how much of this is problematic to some of our students. And what I had argued is very clear. While I am not saying you should sanitize this issue, what I'm saying is we need to actually help our young men and women to be equipped to meet this issue. There is a quotation that I got from somebody, and I'm going to share it with you very quickly. It was so good that I had to post it on my Facebook page. When the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. And what I've argued is abundantly clear. We need to deepen our roots when it comes to the issues that are going on in our church, in our schools, in our institutions. The tares have been sown among the wheat. And how did this happen? Jesus told us an enemy has done this. An enemy has done this. And the fact of the matter is, what we need now is to be strong in the Lord, in the power of his might, more than any times in which we live. And this is what I've given some books, and I've encouraged some things to be done after you are converted, and knowing certain things in the light of what you're going to meet. and no matter where you go, the enemy is working. So there is really no safe place where the devil has not entered. We are told in the spirit of prophecy, where is the flock? Where is the flock where no wolves have entered? So let's listen to part of the testimony here, and I got some more things to share with you at the end. Let's begin by listening to some of the theological issues that he had with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Reason number 2, theological.
Yes.
Over a period of time, I come to realize that many of the fundamental doctrines of the church are theologically flawed.
Okay.
So, being in an abusive situation and seeing that the doctrines are flawed, many of them, after a while, there comes a breaking point.
Yes.
You don't want to continue to support this again. If you're part of a family, you try to help family members who have problems. So you don't get up and leave your marriage because there's a problem with one spouse, with your spouse. You try your best to work with. However, if you're being abused unendingly,
Yes.
there comes a breaking point. So having recognized that the doctrines are flawed and being abused within that context, after a while I said, let me part company, because there are many others like myself who are suffering abuse within the Adventist church. However, their conscience is locked within the system.
Okay.
They do not have an alternative, so to speak,
Yes.
because the conscience is saying this is a remnant church. This is God's true church, irrespective of the situation. Therefore, they will remain. But when you come to realize that theologically, doctrines such as the investigative judgment and the importance of 1844, the Seventh-day Adventist Church being the exclusive remnant church,
Okay.
or the Sabbath is a seal of God, the obligatory nature of the Sabbath, Sunday worship enforced being the mark of the beast, tithe paying as a strict 1/10 of your income. When you realize that that's not really the case from a biblical perspective.
Okay.
Wow. Man, I don't mean to laugh. But when you get to a position as a Seventh-day Adventist where you denying these doctrines, Dr. Clinton, Baldwin, thank you for leaving. I wish all of them would have left. Who holds these views? I don't know why they stay and corrupt the thing and trying to convert people from within. If you've come to a place where you can no longer believe these teachings, your mind has been wrought and you have had a change in your theological perception of the teaching of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. By all means, pack your bag and here is the door. And I appreciate him for having the courage to step away. Men like this I love and respect. The ones who stay in and creating greater chaos and confusions, I have a problem with these men because they're hard to work with and they give the church a bad name and they are impacting the minds of the young, especially those who have not been converted in our schools. So at least I respect him for that. So I respect that.
When you realize that that's not really the case from a biblical perspective.
Okay. Really now.
Cannot be.
Okay.
And there are many others like myself who know this to be true.
Yes.
So when you realize that these things are not the way, Ellen White, as somewhat of a continued source of authority,
Yes.
those things are just flawed. The average member is not aware of these things. But when you realize those things being flawed and you're being abused, then there comes a time when you want to part company. So
Wow. So there was some abuse going on, and he believes we had a lot of flaws in our teachings: the investigative judgment, the seal, the mark of the beast being Sunday enforcement by law. Ellen White is also attacked here as well. So something has happened to this man, and I think the abuse played a significant role. And if you've been abused in the church and you have not dealt with this emotionally, you have not dealt with this spiritually, sometime that could open the door for a whole lot more other stuff. And sometimes a lot of the denial that's going on in the theological stuff in our churches are the result of having been abused. So who knows what he's been through? Okay. He kind of touched on it in the beginning. So I kind of sympathize with anybody who's been through any level of abuse. It depends what kind of abuse it was. But if you think you're going to come to the church and not be abused at all, I will say you're going to have to come to term with reality. The unfortunate reality is that bad things happened in the church as well. There are evil people even in God's church, and they don't always make the right decisions. Doesn't justify their decisions. All I'm simply saying is I've been abused in the Seventh Adventist Church. I've been ostracized, laid aside, cut off in some churches. There's places I don't even go. I can't go worship there. I can't do this, and I can't serve in certain areas in our church. Yes, me, not controversial, not a person who is trying to burn the church down. Yes, I'm in trouble in some areas of our churches, but I have not left because I'm afraid of what the enemy is doing. But again, a man's experience is his own, so let's respect it for what it is. He's going to say something that's even shocking. He's going to go now to address the Sabbath. And as he speaks about the Sabbath, guys, he is going to tell us there are other people just like himself. He's speaking about his book and so on. He's going to say there are other people just like himself who are staying in the hope to convert the church, to appeal to others to do the same. Shocking. Keep listening.
A lot being said, Dr. Baldwin.
Yes.
A lot of interesting things, mind-blowing things. I mean, you are speaking out against, some of the fundamentals of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Yes.
Ellen White, for example, even the Sabbath, which is a key factor in the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Definitely.
You also wrote a book, didn't you?
Yes.
Where the Sabbath was concerned.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that book?
The nature of Jesus, the person of Jesus.
Yes.
God's obligatory Sabbath. It can be found on Amazon. That was my parting gift to the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
What's the name of the book again?
The person of Jesus, God's obligatory Sabbath.
Okay.
I wrote that book as a Seventh-day Adventist, speaking to my fellow brothers and sisters within the church. It's a parting gift to the church, in which I speak as a Seventh-day Adventist and say, these are the things we believe about the Sabbath, in particular, and also many other doctrines. Look at the flaws. Look at the problems.
Yes.
The Sabbath, as 200 and odd pages demonstrate, and by the way, my position on the Sabbath is well known by, or also believed, accepted by many other Seventh-day Adventist Bible scholars, pastors, even informed lay persons.
So you're not alone.
I'm not alone.
Okay.
But others are within. You're not being abused, and it is not politically correct to speak otherwise. You're enjoying prestige. You're enjoying financial security and all of those things.
Yes.
You do not want to rock the boat. People find ways to rationalize it. Many of the people who are within the organization, if they were being persecuted, unending and denied employment, they probably would have come out and speak out the way I'm speaking out.
Wow. Listen to what he's saying. So he just affirmed my point. Sometimes the abuse is the reason why they retaliate. So the retaliation against the teaching of the church does not necessarily mean these men just don't believe the teaching of the church. Sometimes they come to that conclusion as a mean of retaliation because of the abuse that's going on. And whatever term that means to him, that's a reality that he himself can speak about. Or I'm simply saying, oftentimes the people who tends to go out of the church and embass the church have themselves been hurt by the church. And that is a problem. That is a concern. But the thing is, unfortunately, you're going to get abused and hurt and wounded by your brethren. Jesus says he was wounded in a house of his friends. Although this was prophetic, but it was also true physically as well. So that's gonna happen, friends. It's just the way it is. But now, what you choose to do now with the truth of God's word and the teachings and the doctrines is even more concerning. And I think that's kind of where my issue is when it comes to his position. But let's keep listening. What he also says is just the people that are inside that are still willing to come out, but because they're enjoying the financial benefit, they can't come out. And I wish they would just come out and and be gone and like leave the church alone. Stop confusing people.
And many are staying within, working from within to gradually, implement evolutionary change.
Okay.
Whoa, brother. Say that again.
In working from executed unending and denied employment, they probably would have come out and speak out the way I'm speaking out, And many are staying within, working from within to gradually, implement evolutionary change.
Whoa, this is a mouthful. Well, we knew that. We knew we were being infiltrated. We knew that the tares were sown among the wheat. We knew that the enemy has done this. We knew there are the Antichrist spirit inside of the church. We knew that grievous wolves will enter in among you, not sparing the flock of your own self shall men arise, speaking perverse things to draw away disciples after them. We've been warned about that, and unfortunately, when it's happening, it's a shocking value for some of us. But we got to know this is the reality, and I'm so glad that he said this. Wow, it's hard to believe that, but it's true.
Okay.
Huh?
Yes.
But back to the book. In the book, The Person of Jesus, God's Obligatory Sabbath, I demonstrate, as is well known, that the Sabbath is not obligatory as 1/7 of your time as a day. It's obligatory as a person.
Okay.
Adventists, over the years since the inception of the church, has been conditioned to argue and to think of the Sabbath as Saturday versus Sunday.
Yes.
That's the question they ask and answer all along. I am showing that that's a wrong question.
That's the wrong question.
That's the wrong question.
Okay.
The issue is it a day or is it a person?
Interesting.
Wow. I did a video about Mary Emmanuel, who is Sunday keeping, is a Sunday keeper himself. And again, it's something that I admire to a degree, but his perspective on the Sabbath was exactly the same thing. Like the Sabbath is not a day, it's a person, and that person is Jesus Christ. So this man essentially is saying the same thing.
Interesting.
The entire Bible is saying that it is a person.
Wow.
Because Jesus is the fulfillment of the entire Old Testament.
Yes.
Is a fulfillment of all the laws of the Old Testament. The Sabbath is one of the laws of the Old Testament, and naturally fulfills that also.
Okay.
There's so many angles to take this from. Adventists are Sabbath keepers principally a number of reasons. One, the Sabbath, they say, originated in Eden, and it's a part of the Ten Commandments.
Yes.
And the Sabbath is what make Adventists, not Jesus.
Okay.
But that's another argument.
This guy is seriously crazy. By the way, we're not the only one who keeps Sabbath. There are 400 and something 80 groups, and those numbers are growing, who also keep Sabbath. So I wonder if you say the same thing about the Jewish people, but they still keep Sabbath even though they reject Jesus. So yes, we are Adventists because of the Sabbath, not because of Jesus. That's crazy because there is really not that much of it doesn't have to be this way because we do believe in Jesus, right? But we are Seventh-day Adventists because we do keep the Sabbath and we believe in the second coming of Jesus. So Jesus is also in the name, but that's just crazy. How did he get to this point?
And the Sabbath is what make Adventists, not Jesus.
Okay.
But that's another argument. the fact that the Sabbath, quotes and quotes, originated in Eden, does not make it obligatory.
Okay.
The fact that part of the Ten Commandments cannot make it obligatory from a theological and exegetical perspective.
Wow. This is crazy. How do you get to a point in your Adventist journey where you don't even believe the Sabbath is one of God's commandments, is not obligatory. Oh my goodness. What happened? This is scary. I don't know. I'm not going to assume, man. I'm not going to attack theology and stuff like that. Something happened, man. It looks like, again, he's fulfilling prophecy, and I'll share with you in a little bit.
Okay, interesting.
No, we are not under the Edenic covenant. In other words, the laws and the commandments given in Eden, and by the way, the Sabbath was not commanded in Eden. Even if it were, that would not make it obligatory.
Okay.
In Eden, Adam and Eve were commanded to eat only what? Fruits,
Yes.
to sway dominion over the animal kingdom, to get married.
Yes, yes.
Jesus didn't get married. Jesus ate meat.
Yes.
He was not therefore in keeping with Eden.
Interesting.
You've got to take the entire package.
Yes, yes.
Colossians 1, 16 and 17 says, all things were made for Jesus. And Jesus himself, Matthew 5, he fulfilled everything. So, Eden points to Jesus.
Yes.
And let me interject one other point. There are so many things. If you say that the Sabbath is obligatory because of its Edenic origin, you must also say that Passover, Pentecost, New Moons, and all those other Sabbaths within the Old Testament are obligatory because they too have an Edenic origin.
What? Wow. The festivals did not come from Eden, boy. These started after the Jews were delivered from Egypt. Oh my goodness. How I'm just gonna have to move on. This video is long enough. So thank you, Dr. Clinton Baldwin, for departing from the faith. I'm so glad you moved out and fulfilling the words that the Bible speaks about. I don't have hatred in my heart for any man like that. I respect them just because they have the courage to speak up and speak out. Actually, I respect people like that than the ones who are hiding within and creating greater chaos. So I would rather have that kind of man. Now, the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter time some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. Unfortunately, that's what happened, friends. That's just what happens. And in 1 John chapter 2, this is sad, this is scary, and I'm not going to try to get to know what happened. I'm just going to make sure whatever happened to you doesn't happen to me. I'm just going to make sure I stay at the feet of Jesus and read his word and obey his voice and say, Lord, hold on to me. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to go after the man and trying to get to the motives of the thing. But we are told also in the scripture, we are told that they went out from us because they were not of us. For they have that been of us, they will no doubt have continued with us. But they went out, that they might be made manifest, that they were not all of us. That's what's going on, friends. So where is this prophetically happening as well in the light of the spirit of prophecy? Let me share something with you. So I'm sure you're familiar with this passage. I've shared this before, and I had Dr. O on my channel. We went through this whole passage and breaking it down and the significance of this and how it is being fulfilled in the church today. So they talk about this new reformation, right? This new reformation is not so much the church. It is so much a reformation that is coming in the hope to change the ways of the church. So it does have an impact on the church, but it hasn't been fully adapted. And we are told there will be an intervention from God. But we are told the enemy of soul has sought to bring in the supposition that a great reformation is to take place among Seventh-day Adventists, that this reformation will consist in giving up the doctrines which stands as the pillar of our faith and engaging in a process of reorganization. And now, what is that we're going to give up? This reformation was to take place. So if this was to take place, right, here are some things that they will attack. The principles of truth that God has in his wisdom as given to the remnant church will be discarded. Our religions will be changed. The fundamental principles that has sustained the work for the past 50 years will be accounted as error. A new organization will be established. Books of new order will be written. A system of intellectual philosophy, that's what we were listening to earlier, intellectual philosophy, would be introduced. That historical critical method, that's part of that intellectual philosophy. It is really an atheist view that has crept into the church to confuse the Christian church, and is very impactful. It doesn't belong in our church, but in some cases, some people are teaching that to some of our students. That's wrong. The founders of this system will go into the cities to do a dreadful work, not the wonderful work. Listen now. The Sabbath, of course, would be lightly regarded as also the God who created it. Nothing will be allowed to stand in the way of the new movement. The leaders will teach that virtue is better than vice, but God being removed, they will place their dependence on human power, and without which is worthless, and the foundation which built on sand and storm and tempest will sweep away the structure of that foundation, which is the new organization that they're trying to bring in. So this is an effort to change the ways of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we are told they will go after the Sabbath, the sanctuary, and all these teachings that we once believed in are going to be rejected. And isn't that happening? Yes, it is happening. So how do we deal with this? Now, the question is, what do we do when this thing is coming and we're beginning to see this new organization, these new teachings, this new intellectual ways of defining scripture? What do we do? So you have some options. One, you can join it. You can join it. I wouldn't recommend that. The other thing is you can act like it doesn't exist. Ignore it. Ignore it. Or you can run from it. Run from it. Or you can do option number 4. This is where I stand. You can meet it. You can meet it. Some people run. Some people are joining. Some people are acting like it doesn't exist. But some of us are going to meet it. And Ellen White told us to do this. And again, she gave this analogy based on the vision that she had. Shortly before I sent out the testimonies regarding the effort of the enemy to undermine the foundation of our faith through the dissemination of seductive theories, I've had an incident about a ship in a fog meeting an iceberg. For several nights, I slept but little. I seemed to be bowed down as a cart beneath sheaves. One night, a scene was clearly presented before me. A vessel was up on the waters in a heavy fog. Suddenly the lookout cried, "Iceberg just ahead." There, towering high above the ship, was a gigantic iceberg. An authoritative voice cried out. What is the voice? Meet it. You see, that iceberg represents the new organization. It represents this new form of apostasy. It represents the teachings and the denying of our biblical beliefs as Seventh-day Adventists. The solution that we are told is to meet it. There was not a moment of hesitation. It was a time for instant action. The engineer puts all his stream, and the men at the wheels steered the ship straight into the iceberg. With a crash, she struck the ice. There was a fearful shock, and the iceberg broke into many pieces, falling with a noise like thunder to the deck. The passengers were violently shaken by the force of the collisions, but no lives were lost. The vessel was injured, but not beyond repair. She rebounded from the contact, trembling from stem to stern, like a living creature, Then she moved forward on her way. We are told, listen carefully how she concludes this thing. Well, I know the meaning of this representation. I had my orders. I heard the words, like a voice from our captain, meet the apostasy. I knew what my duty was, that there was not a moment to lose. The time for decided actions had come. I must without delay obey the command, meet it. So as the solution to this kind of apostasy and confusion in our church, it's not to ignore it, it's not to run from it, it's not to join it, but the solution is to meet it. May the Lord give us the courage to do exactly that.